It's April, it's spring, and we're here with Linda Cartier talking about financial matters once again here on behalf of course, financial decisions. And even though it's spring and there's hope for good weather ahead, we're facing financial difficulties in the world. But are we really looking at disaster?
Well, I think certainly this spring has been not quite as peaceful and easy as what we've seen last year. We have had snow even yesterday.
That's true.
So winter and the tough weather's not let go of us, and I think it to some degree really reflects what's happening in the world, that it's very unpredictable and not the norm. And so the politics that we're facing and that's disrupting everywhere is also very volatile. And like the weather, one moment it's one way and one moment it's the next, because it's very, very much at the whim of whatever comes out of Mr. Trump's mouth that then changes the thoughts, the directions, and the rest of the world's approach to the U.S. and to dealing with what's happening around the world. However, it's during these kind of volatile times that the investors that are successful, the investors that don't get themselves into trouble, don't spend a lot of time looking at their statements, because nobody likes to see things go down. And even though if a person does look at their statements, I think most people will be relieved to see that it hasn't gone down as much as they would have thought, because what you're hearing when they're talking about, huge slides and that sort of thing depends on where you're invested. And I would certainly say we're lucky in the fact that we've been working with investment teams that are doing a really good job at protecting portfolios. Earlier in the year, there was a number of moves that the Croft team did, moving certain amounts into cash, and they continued to benefit when they see things going up, taking some profits and putting those profits in a place that's safer for everyone. The portfolios across the board, obviously, if you're in a balanced portfolio, you already have a lot of bonds in there, but even those in a growth position have a bigger holding now in the bonds, which are bonds that are earning better interest rates than even the GICs that you're able to get, because the interest rates on the GICs and safety sorts of savings accounts have been dropping as we see the rate keep going down with the Bank of Canada.
Are bonds sort of a safety investment? I know that during the Great Depression, bonds were something that held up really well, and the same thing in various recessions that we've had since then. Bonds seem to be something that investors look to as stability. Well,
certainly, they're probably not as well known as GICs or the former Canada savings bonds. However, they do have interest that's attached to them, and they do trade on a bond market, which is really large. But it is a stability factor, and in particular, they are something that does particularly well when interest rates are dropping, which is what we've been seeing. So it's definitely a cornerstone to having something that will, just keep on paying out some money that bolsters a person's portfolio.
And the investment professionals at Croft do balance the bonds with the other investments as well, too, to make sure that
absolutely
there's a mix that gives the better returns.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think that's important to understand is that some of the things that the tariffs are on, or that are on in a bigger position or bigger percentage, they're not necessarily something that is in somebody's portfolio. most people are sitting with assets in their portfolio that are on the growth side that are stable types of companies, that are things that everybody needs and buys, and are not necessarily going to change as to, okay, well, I'm not buying that because it's gone up so much now. Things that are staples that people need, you just, you might cut a corner on the leisure item, but you're not going to cut a corner on, the basics.
Now, how did all this come about? Now, we're not going to talk too much about Trump because we have pundits everywhere who are giving their impression as to why he does what he does. I think, however, if you're really looking for an in-depth analysis, Richard Croft of the Croft Financial Group, in his latest report, does a good analysis of Trumpism, as he calls it. And that report was sent out to most clients. And it's also on the website, the Financial Decisions website. You can go there, and under the investment tag, you can take a look as well too. And also the B&M Bloomberg analysis on a day-to-day basis is always good to keep in But you got to remember that ups and downs on a daily basis are apt to give you indigestion. So
for sure. And I think the thing that is really key is to always go back to what was a person's goals for their investments. Obviously, anything that was going to be short term was going to be something that you are sitting with in a specialty savings account or your bank account or GICs, because that was intended for something short term. If it's not something intended for short term, pulling out of the market is very dangerous. To take it and then go say you're going to sit in cash. And big problem with that is, especially when things are happening the way they are right now, one day things are up and then the next day, sometimes it just, goes in the other direction. So you might think that you're taking it out at a good time, and timing the market is always proven to be unsuccessful. Taking profits when times are appropriate makes sense, which is, as I said, what the managers have been working on. But just having a knee-jerk reaction is definitely a dangerous thing.
I know that time is something that's very important because it depends on when you need the money. And if you're looking at needing money within a relatively short period of time, a year or 2 or 3 or 4, even 5 years, as against looking at the money you need off into the future. Let's say you're 30 years old, you're looking at retirement, which is perhaps another 30 years in the future, and your retirement may last another 30 years past that time. So that's really important when it comes to financial planning, is looking at all those variables.
Yeah, absolutely. If a person's looking to purchase a house in a 2-year time frame, then that money you want to be a little more cautious with, because it could be that at the moment you do it and you see the house of your dreams, then if you put it into something too aggressive, it could be down. But if you put it into something that's that sort of low risk safety net, well, then you're okay. So a big part of it is time as opposed to timing.
Now, of course, tariffs have been with us for years, and some people say they're good. Some people say that, well, maybe not the best for a world when you're looking at, one country trading with another country. And, when you're looking at goods that you can't produce yourself, then you obviously have to buy elsewhere. If you can produce things yourself, maybe you have to have a tariff to protect yourself against another country that can produce at less cost. But that's rather tricky, and it's something that, like economists and those people who do financial work, looking at investments here and there and how the tariffs work out, it's something that's not easy for us really to comprehend. But governments seem to get involved, and that's where the trouble is.
Well, like anything else, if you're going to make goods cost more money, it's going to make people think twice before they purchase something that's not an essential, or to look at other types of things. I mean, certainly, used cars may become a little more expensive again because people maybe, rather than have to worry about the tariffs. Unfortunately, there are times when the tariffs could be of value in some ways, but I think what we're watching happen right now, there's not really a grand plan. It's very randomly being, thrown around, and it's, obviously because it's not well thought out and it's not been something that's being negotiated or discussed, which is usually the way things would happen, to understand like why there would be a need, or if there is a need, and what you could do to work more reasonably together. But, as time goes along, perhaps Canada itself will learn some things to build us a little stronger and reach out to other parts of the world to diversify rather than depending as much on the U.S.
And that's one of the things we have to realize, of course, is that this is government to government. I mean, people to people. We have people all over the world. They're just like us. And of course, with our American friends, and for some of us, our American relatives, and those of us who have gone to school in the States, in elementary and high school, and have many relatives in the States, we realize these are people just like us. So we're not angry at the people. We're perhaps a little upset with the government.
Yeah.
But regardless of whether it has to be the European Union or Asia or the United States, we're all trying to get along to have the best life that we can, and to because life depends on the things that we use on both an everyday basis and for the future, and so that it has to be for everyone's benefit. And I guess this is what we're really trying to look at now, is hopefully the countries will come together and are able to look beyond this tariff situation and how we can all benefit, all of us benefit at the same time, which is possible, really, because that's really how trading developed. If you even go back to the early days, we all traded, I traded my expertise for your expertise, or your products that you made and my products, but this is on a more of a global scale, and perhaps everyone's getting a little uptight about it right now, but I hope, and we all hope, that things will resolve themselves in the future. But meanwhile, for those of us in our sign here behind us, looking at financial planning solutions, what really is what we should say to folks about their own financial situation now going forward, even putting all this tariff stuff aside?
Well, I mean, again, I think it's certainly a great time to go back to the drawing board and look and see, have your goals changed, or has any circumstances in your life changed that needs you to do something, different or not. One of
the things we can say is, of course, and we mentioned earlier on the Great Depression, we mentioned, and on the wall here in our boardroom, we have a list of what were serious events over time. Going back in 1934, for example, right up to the present. There's been ups and downs. There's been fluctuations. There's been what you might call little disasters, including, of course, COVID was a really, really big disaster, where the markets fell even greater than they have now with the tariff situation. So these things have, in the immediate moment, as it were, it appears to be very serious. But if you look ahead and look at what's happened in the past and how these situations that look very severe have basically been resolved.
And we're already seeing that people that are living in the U.S. Are standing up and saying, wait a sec, this is not the way to go about things. This is not what we necessarily expected. And certainly some of those people might not have voted for Trump in the first place. However, there's also Republicans that are going to be dealing with the midterms in 2026, and they're not so sure how they feel about some of this. So there's, it certainly, as unsettling as it has been, it doesn't mean that this is a fait accompli and that it's going to be like this for the next 4 years. There are going to be changes and adjustments, and as things get better understood as to what this means for the U.S., there will be more negotiations that don't necessarily put this in such a bad state as it is today. So keeping a cool head and your eye on how your planning has been and what you need it to be is really key.
Sort of brings to mind a famous English expression. I think King Charles used it just a while back, and that's keep calm and carry on.
Sure, that sounds like a good idea.
And we hope the weather, of course, will improve, and we hope the current concerns will be addressed. And we hope that we'll be looking forward to celebrating our 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
Actually, here in the Barrie historical home here in Minnow Lake, and we hope by that time we'll have better news and outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So until then, bye for now.